Hey everyone, if you're like most people in my audience, you're probably thinking about retirement. Otherwise, you likely wouldn't be watching this channel. And you may have already figured out that planning for retirement can be confusing and really more than just a little bit intimidating. A lot of people actually find this to be a stressful period because the amount of information you have to sort through and make decisions with is overwhelming. So today, I'm going to show you how you can simplify your retirement and turn the confusion into confidence. You know, a few days ago, I posted a question in my YouTube community. I asked, what is your greatest financial fear in retirement? Now, we've had about 2,500 responses so far, and nearly 60% say that running out of money is their greatest fear. Now, I can understand why this is a concern. If you read any of the news, you've probably seen some of the research, like the report by the Employee Benefit Research Institute that says those born between 1946 and 1964 are likely to run out of money in retirement, no matter their income level. They go on to break the likelihood of running out of money by income quartiles. According to their research, they believe that 83% in the lowest income quartile will run out of money, 47% in the second lowest quartile will run out, 28% in the second highest quartile will run out, and 13% in the highest income quartile will run out. Now, seeing that no one is immune to this is scary stuff for sure, but it doesn't have to scare you. This is one retirement anxiety that can be cured quickly. You know, there are a lot of unknowns that happen in life, things that we can't plan for, things that just smack us in the face one morning. But running out of money isn't one of those. This is something that can be planned around, and it doesn't have to be a big, complicated ordeal. Now, although running out of money may be the biggest fear of retirees, it certainly isn't the only thing that causes anxiety about retirement, that point where you switch from accumulating savings to spending those savings. There's a few other things that I hear all the time, like, how do I know if I should do Roth conversions? How do I keep from paying too much in taxes? What's the optimal sequence to withdraw my retirement savings? And the big one that people turn to me for a lot, how do I coordinate my Social Security filing strategy with all of my other assets and retirement income? Well, all of those concerns can be addressed in a well-defined retirement income plan. Now, in my 20 years of financial planning and walking the retirement journey with lots of retirees, I've seen lots of different types of retirement plans. Some were DIY projects that were written on notebook paper or maybe in Excel. And then I've seen the professional retirement plans that have been generated by software. In many cases, these are hardbound with personalized covers, and almost all of them have nice charts and graphs and pictures of happy couples walking down the beach, or at least the obligatory lighthouse and Adirondack chairs. Now, if you've had one of these plans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, the truth is, I think most of that is fluff and completely unnecessarily. And frankly, I think some of it is designed to be obscure. But I do think that you deserve clarity about the future. So I'd like to show you how my firm does a retirement income plan. And down below, I'm going to put a link where you can find out more. So when we're helping people figure out their retirement plan, we do still use the high-powered financial planning software to help us integrate all the interwoven pieces. It's just too complex to not do that. But when it's time to deliver the plan, I want my clients to be able to look at their plan and instantly understand the key data they need to make good decisions. And a good plan is going to be very complex in the background, but the results that are delivered to the client should be simple and easy to understand. And furthermore, whoever delivers that plan should be able to go into detail on any area of that plan and get into the weeds. Now, in our plan, you'll easily be able to see on a year-by-year basis how much you need in gross income, where that income is coming from, and how much it will cost you in taxes. And then you'll have the ending balance of your accounts. Our plan has been designed to give you clarity on when you should file for Social Security, the most optimal sequences to tap your retirement accounts, and most of all, the confidence to move into retirement without worrying about something that you've overlooked. Now, we're not just going to create a PDF and email it back to you and say, good luck figuring out what all of this means. Instead, we're going to record a video walking you through your plan that's typically between 20 and 30 minutes long. And We're going to send that video to you along with a PDF report so you can follow along the video and absorb it all in the comfort and thinking space of your own home or office. But I don't want to just talk about this. Let me actually show you what a plan is and what it looks like so you'll know what to expect. Okay, and here's the plan summary. This is what you're going to see when we send you that email. In fact, the email with the video is going to flow very much like this video right here is going to go. So let's go to the first summary page and let's zoom in on this and start going over each of these details. So this is for John and Dana Sample. Obviously not real names, but this is a real plan. We just changed the names. So John and Dana want to retire at the end of 2023. They are both the same age. They have a goal of $8,000 per month in net income, and we're going to adjust that for inflation every year. And then at John's age 80, the net income will decrease by 20%. Not everyone wants this feature in their plan, but most people, once they understand why we put it in there, they're okay with it. You know, if you've observed your own parents or other people, once they hit about age 80, they generally stick around the house a little bit more. They don't travel. They've already gone on the trips they want to do, and that net income can come down. But we have had people along the way that have told us, no, just leave that income the same. And if so, we can certainly do that. And then we have the analysis results. These are the broad results. And after solving for average market conditions, their portfolio was sufficient to give them their retirement income for 30 years or longer. And then we did some additional testing that showed that their monthly net income could be increased by $1,500 to $2,500 per month. That depends on the individual scenario that we chose, but what they ended up doing was when Dana realized that they had additional capacity, she said, wait a minute, that means that not only can we travel, but maybe we can afford to take our kids with us too. And so that's what they did. They ended up traveling with, or making an allocation at least, for traveling with their kids and their families. And then we have the next heading is the approximate value of accounts used for retirement income. Now, a lot of times we'll show this because it's often different from maybe a net worth statement where you have all of your accounts listed. These are only the accounts that we're going to be using in the plan. So, for example, if you have an account that's been earmarked for buying your condo on the beach that has $400,000 in it, don't need to include that here. We only want to see those plans that can generate, or those accounts that can generate income. And then next, the Monte Carlo simulation results. You know, for a long time, I did not include these in plans. I thought that it confused things a little bit too much. But now, after going back and reading some of the research and the data, I'm a big fan of using these as one of the data points to make a decision. And so looking at this client, their portfolio value and withdrawal rate was tested against 1,000 randomized combinations of actual historical returns that was specific to their asset allocation. Now that means that someone with their portfolio size taking out the same amount of money that they're taking out, looking back, we ran that through 1,000 random combinations, and the result was a 96% probability of success. Now, I've had a lot of people say, Devin, I don't want to accept anything less than 100. Well, first of all, 100% probability of success is very difficult to get. Secondly, it doesn't really mean what you think it does. A probability of success in retirement planning when you're doing Monte Carlo simulations is not the same probability of success that you'd get if, for example, you were flying as a passenger from here to Seattle. You know, if your captain came on and told you that, good evening, today we have a 96% probability of getting to Seattle, you probably wouldn't be that happy about that because that means there's a 4% chance of crashing, right? Well, that's not what it means in this case. It means that based on all those randomized sampling of results, 96% of the time, or 960 plans out of 1,000 didn't have to have any adjustments to them at all. 4% did have to be adjusted. So it's kind of like driving in your car and you see a tree up ahead or something in the road. You're going to start to make adjustments before that, and that's the whole value of a plan. And then we have the linear return results. We also use the straight line average returns when we're doing this. I think it's less accurate, but it is more conservative. And this is kind of the old school way of doing it. You know, when we would simply look back at average market returns over the last 70 years and say, well, if it's been 10%, then let's forecast that we can get 8 and build that out as a rate of return in there. Those straight line rate of returns just aren't going to happen that way, and the sequence of returns absolutely matter. And that's why I like the Monte Carlo simulation a little better, but there's still some results that you cannot get out of the Monte Carlo simulation. You still have to use a linear return. One of the things that we want to see is what is the minimum viable return rate to make sure this plan lasts until the youngest person in the plan is at the end of plan. Now, in most of our plans, that end of plan is age 90. For some people, it's going to be a little later than that. Some people say, no, let's make it 85. And in this case, as long as they got 3.5% every year, then their plan was enough to sustain their withdrawals. And then the next section we look at is tax efficiency. This is a big part of the plan, and if you ignore this, you're going to give up a lot more money than you need to. So when we do this testing, we want to look at what's the correct order to withdraw assets in. So if you have, say, for example, 3 account types, you have a taxable account, maybe that's a brokerage account. You have your tax-deferred accounts, that's your IRAs, 401ks, etc. Then you have your tax-free accounts, like your Roth accounts. Which order do you tap those in? And so in testing in this plan, we determined that it was most optimal to tax the taxable, or to tap the taxable, start taking out of that account first, then the tax-deferred, the tax-free. Now, for a comparison, we also want to look at the other scenarios. So there's the pro rata strategy. That's where people are taking annual distributions from each account. So you take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and a little bit from here, right? That's the way a lot of people will retire and start taking distributions if they don't have a plan. And you can see in this case where it was a little over 20% higher lifetime federal taxes. And it resulted in a lower ending balance that was 8% lower. So we're not talking about an insignificant amount. And so then when we look at the other strategy, what about if we took out of the 401ks, the IRAs first, then we go to the brokerage account, and then finally we tap any tax-free accounts? Well, that resulted in a 17.8% higher cumulative taxes and a lower ending account balance that was almost 16% lower. So it's a clear winner that the right way to get into those accounts is to take a distribution from the taxable account first, then the tax-deferred account, then the tax-free account. All right, and then Social Security. Now, for those of you who have followed me for a while, you know I can go down a rabbit trail here, so we really work hard to try to keep these concise. There's 2 things that we want to see, and I think there's 2 charts that everyone needs to see before they make a decision. And that is, how is my filing strategy going to affect the taxes I pay in retirement? And how is it going to affect the total balances of my retirement accounts? Now, in this case, we're working with someone that started out with about $2.1 million. This really gets important for those people who are in that $600 to $1.5 million range. And I'll show you why in just a moment. But let's talk about taxes first. So all of these are assuming, all of these strategies, these filing strategies that you see here at the bottom, are assuming the identical net income amounts. So for example, if you file at 62, that simply means that you didn't have to take as much out of your account, right, to fill in that gap, because part of it came from Social Security and part of it came from your savings. Now, because of the way their accounts were structured, that actually resulted in slightly higher taxes initially. Now, if their income would have been coming out of an IRA or tax-deferred account, this certainly would have been flip-flopped. But it's not. It was coming out of a taxable account, which is taxable at the capital gains rate. So as you go through here, you can see, though, that there is a crossover where after about 2042, filing at age 62 became the cheapest in total cumulative taxes. Now, you see this kind of stop going over to the side and it levels out. There's a reason for that. We'll get to that in just a moment. So this gives you the data you need to understand how the filing decisions will affect your taxes. And then we have, how do the filing strategies affect your balances? Now this one paints a picture that's a little more clear. So for example, you can see that they retired with $2.1 million. Let's just look at this yellow line. That's the age 70 filing line. And you can see that they delayed all the way from 62 to 70 their filing decision, and their account balances just stayed flat. Now, that was because, number one, they have $2.1 million in the amount of income they're taking out relative to their portfolio size, allowed the growth to keep the account flat. If this would have been a smaller account and they would have been taking the same retirement income, you would have seen this balance line decline, and maybe sharply, and maybe to the point where it became unstable. So we've really got to monitor how the balances are affected for the filing strategies. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the blue line where they both file at 60, just come right up here, there's about a $500,000 difference. Now, it doesn't work this way with everyone, but in this case, what we have is someone that was delaying down here all the way to 70 so they could get a higher benefit. But instead, if they would have simply filed at 62, their account balance alone would have been worth $500,000 more. And so looking at all of the factors, the total impact of their taxes and their account balances, our recommendation was for them to both file at 62. And that came as a surprise because they were fully expecting us to tell them to file at 70. One of the other things that's in all the plans is an allocation for long-term care. Unless you tell us to not include it, it's going to be there. If someone already has their own long-term care plan, there's no need for us to include it here. But if they don't, then this is where we make a provision to pay for that. We always assume that the last 2 years of plan are going to be long-term care years. And so we take today's average cost of in-home care, and then we adjust that for inflation. Now, us using 2 years is not written in stone. We can absolutely use 1 year. We can use 0 years. We can do 5 years. That's up to you when we build these, but 2 years is our default. And for these clients, we did examine a Roth conversion. Again, this is not something that we do for every client, but they wanted to see a Roth conversion because they had a large taxable amount. And so with that brokerage account, so doing the napkin math, it kind of seemed to make sense to do a Roth conversion. But once we plugged everything in, that Roth conversion strategy resulted in higher lifetime taxes. And, we ultimately recommend that, okay, for your tax situation, it doesn't make sense. But if you want to leave your heirs a more tax-friendly inheritance, then yeah, it can make sense then. But don't do it to save yourself taxes because it just didn't add up. All right. And then we make some notes about the investment allocation. This client, this will kind of show you how they were allocated. 74% of their investments were in bonds and cash, or 74% was, in the fixed income category. And that came as a surprise to them. They did not realize how much was in that, but that's because it was spread out among all these different accounts and then never aggregated that together. And so we recommended that they change the allocation to a portfolio with more stocks. We've got to be able to keep up with inflation. Bonds certainly aren't doing the job right now, although they may pop back in the near future, but all subject to the risk tolerance and how we get that changed. But we did recommend making some changes there. And the fees, once we looked at the fees on the investments that they're paying, the overall aggregate fee was 1.2%, plus the expenses that they were having to pay their advisor. So we told them, listen, on the investment-related expense, that needs to be closer to about 0.1%. We can do that by using some index-based ETFs. And we ended the summary section up by just putting some notes in there about what we need to hit next. Now, this next sheet is the cash flow summary. Now, this is an interesting sheet. Now, I know when you look at it, it looks massive. There's all these little numbers. Don't worry. I'm going to blow this up a little bit and go over it. And when we send you your plan, it's in a PDF, which means that you're going to be able to zoom in on it without distorting the text. But before we get there, I do want to show you what all of these different colors actually mean. So we have the gray here, that's just the year and the ages. We have the income needs in this peach color here. And then we have the income that's coming in the green. Then we have the deficit or excess, which I'll explain in a moment. And then we have the balances in the blue. Over here, this is informational. Good stuff to know, but it doesn't necessarily tie back into any of these other numbers. Our goal from this point to this point is to make everything flow together and to make sense. So let me blow this up so you can see this on a year-by-year basis. That should be big enough, I think. And so let's go with the year 2023. John's 62, Dana's 62. They said, hey, $84,000 in living expense. At least that was this scenario that we ran. That's going to result in a federal tax of $2,645. In their state, they were also going to pay state tax of $2,492 if they were going to make that move that they were talking about, which gave them total tax of $5,137. They were estimating that it was going to cost about $1,000 per month pre-retirement for them to continue buying their health care insurance. And so that gives them a gross income need of $113,137. So the way we get that is take that $113,137 and you start subtracting out all of the expenses to get you to the net income amount that you need. So we know that to give you $84,000 in your pocket, in your bank account that you can spend is going to require a gross income of $113,137. So how are we going to get it? Well, let's go over the income section here. So we know that John's going to have a benefit of $26,497. And in this scenario, Dana didn't have any coming in, any spousal benefit, and certainly no survivor benefit yet because John's still alive. And so the total Social Security benefit was $26,497. So that was the total income. If you add everything up here in the green, total income was $26,497. Now, the way we get this deficit or excess is by simply looking at, all right, you needed $113,137 in gross income. You had $26,497 come in. That leaves you a deficit of $86,640. So remember the sequence that we're going to pull from is the individual accounts, those taxable accounts, and then we're going to empty those out first before we have to start taking out of the tax deferred accounts. But we actually never even get to the point where we empty this out. If you're already looking down the line, you probably see that, and I'll show you why in just a moment. And so then in the blue section, here's all of the year-ending account balances. So 2.188982. All right, the same thing happens next year, except now you have a deficit of $72,999 because at this point, Dana's getting some Social Security, and so your deficit isn't quite as large, but again, it comes from your individual account. And you keep going down, and you can see where the required minimum distributions start here. And then the required minimum distributions start for Dana at a different age in this scenario for some reason. But if they're both 62, they should be starting at the same age. So this must have been an alternate scenario that we were modeling out. But the end result is still the same. That's going to contribute to the total income, and that's going to lower the deficit or excess that you have to pull from your accounts. So you can go through here and you can see year by year where your income is coming from, how much it's going to cost you in taxes, and what your final balance is. Now over here, we tally up some things and give you some of the numbers. So for example, your cumulative tax, how much are you paying in taxes in this version of the plan? Those numbers can get pretty big and pretty scary when you're looking at those. What's your annual adjusted gross income? Now, this is all based on current law along with the expiration of the Trump tax cuts, which appear so far to still be on schedule to sunset at the end of 2025. And so we have to build the plans out as if that's going to happen. And you can see that over here. Here's the standard deduction that's high, and then it drops back down to $17,925, but the personal exemptions come back in as well. And then you've got those being adjusted for inflation moving forward. So you can see what your taxable income is. Here's the distribution that you're making. And over here, this is a really important column that shows the distribution percentage. So that lets us know on an annual basis, are you in line with the amount you need to be pulling out? And remember at the very beginning, I said that they had the capacity to pull out some extra. That's why. So this is the cash flow summary. You'll be able to look at year by year. There's no hiding the penny on this. If there's been a mistake in planning, it's instantly going to show up, and you're going to be able to get a very granular view of the rest of your retirement. So I think you'll probably agree with all of the other people that's already had this plan that there's a lot of value there. And I'll tell you, that's the way the plan looks today, but we are always making improvements. So there could be slight differences between what you saw today and what your finished plan will look like. But you can rest assured that any changes we make are only going to make this plan better and easier to understand. Now, if you'd like to book a consultation to talk about if this plan is right for you and how much it's going to cost, there's a link down below where you can read more and go directly to my personal calendar. I look forward to seeing your name on the schedule. Thank you for watching.